Hello, everybody. My name is Josh, and this is Lions on the Path. So happy to be with you all tonight on a Saturday night, and I'm so excited to talk to you about all of the different things, which I probably will get to just a few of them. But I just kind of was convicted to think about. I'd heard that Jesus is kind of a cheat code in life, and I didn't hear that. I wrote it. I wrote it down a long time ago. And I was sitting here thinking about it because I just saw a bit of notes that I'd written that down on, and that is not the right phrasing for it. It is not that Jesus is a cheat code for life. It is that we are these NPCs, these non-player characters, and that Jesus is the source code. He is the creator. He gives us life itself. Before we know him, we are just wandering around as what I call spiritual zombies. Now, a zombie is someone, a fictional monster who chases flesh because they're always hungering for flesh. And yet, what do we? We hunger for the desires of the flesh and we chase them around, and it becomes our identity, whether we like it or not. And we can't help ourselves. We just ache to have these desires fulfilled. And what God does is he allows us to go out and have those desires fulfilled. He allows us to go out into the dark places, into the places where there's total depravity, because that's the way most of the world is. And we start to see, as we experience having these desires fulfilled, that it is leaving us more empty than ever. So we much must go and touch that hot stove to see that it stings. God doesn't just connect us to the source code in life, He turns on a sort of restoration mode where we are restored and then we go out and help others find Him. We help others obtain life itself. And while I understand the thought of unbelievers because I used to be one, uh, not not as ardent as some unbelievers for sure, but I didn't really just think about God or anything like that much at all. When you're living in true suffering, it's things like meaning in life that just that ship has sailed. So I just lived in an emptiness and I wanted it to be over. And as one of my favorite saying goes, one day I told God that I was done and he said, "Good, now I can begin." And while I talk to you all, I know most of you have already been on this journey with Christ. You've already had the blessing to have felt his presence in your life, whether it's just faint or whether it's still just a calling or whether it is a profound presence that radically changed you. But there are others, of course, who I I pray that I can help in any way, shape, or form, who have not felt his presence. And so we must, as those who have had that blessing in our life, we must remember who we were before we were saved. We must always remember the brokenness and the weakness. And that brokenness and weakness is what our our faith is built upon. It, I've talked about it before, and I will get into this really quick just before I get to the comments. There's a parable Jesus Christ gives about the parable of the sower. And he says, the kingdom of heaven is like a sower, a farmer who goes out and plants his seeds in different places. And he says, some of the seeds fall along the path and they get trampled or eaten by the birds. Some of those seeds fall upon the rocky soil and they grow real fast and real quick. But as soon as the sun beats down on them or The roots hit that rocky undergrowth or underneath, then they wither and die. Some of the seeds fall in the briars, and that chokes the life out of them before they ever get a chance to grow. And finally, some of the seeds fall in fertile soil. But what do we fertilize soil with? We fertilize soil with manure. And the manure in our life, the thing that the waste that fertilizes our faith, that makes us ripe for redemption and fertile ground for salvation, that manure is the suffering we endure. The more of it you endure, the more likely you are to be radically transformed, to grow and bear great fruit. The less of it, it's going to be tougher for sure. And you're not going to understand what Christ is telling us and what Christ is leading us towards because you already think that you have it so good here. You've made your identity of the world and in the world, and you want to be your own God. Whether you understand it or not, you want to forge your own path, and you say, why can't I just make my own meaning? Why can't I just make my own direction? And we are radically missing what Christ is leading us towards, and that is he is calling for us to destroy this broken, fallen world, take it down brick by brick, just as the temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD was overturned, not one brick was left unturned. He's telling us to do that right now with this fallen world, so we can come in and he can restore it. And he says that he needs allies in that restoration in his family who he has chosen us to be. We get to be part of that restoration. So that is something that I think that not a lot of Christians really think about because we are focused on, as everyone is, it's just our nature, we're focused on prideful pursuits a lot of times. And it's hard to really dig deep into see what God's plan is, not just for us, but for the world around us. But that's why we must keep seeking Him every single day. Every single moment of every single day, He has some new gift for us and some new treasure to unearth. And I pray that we all get to experience that and we all get to feel the sustaining hope, the peace beyond all understanding, the meaning and the purpose, and the radical love that Christ gives to us. Uh, Welcome, everybody. So, Joe and John, great to see you all. Daniel, great to see you. Happy Saturday to you. Absolutely, John. And it's great to see you here and hope you're having fun at work. Um, hey, Bear North, great to see you. Ocean, Proverbs 21:19 states, better to live in the desert than with a quarrelsome and nagging wife. Hey, Joshua, the plants grow bigger and stronger with manure, which why would that be the case? Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Um, Plants grow bigger and stronger with manure because it provides for fertile soil. That was exactly my point. The suffering we endure in this life is the fertilizer, is the manure. We don't like it. We try to avoid manure and waste, right? But that's exactly what causes us to grow. Excuse me, everybody. That's why if you do not have that wake up call, if you don't say, "Well, I'm done trying to do it my way. I'm going to put my faith in how Christ has shown that He does it in the scriptures, but also in the lives of billions before." And we see the miracle that He provides for us. There's Ken. Welcome, brother. Excuse me, guys. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to go tonight, but I'm going to give it my all. Katie says, uh, Joshua, who puts manure on these fields these days? We don't. Um, I'm pretty sure they do that in most countries like Africa and stuff. Still, it's the tried and true um, fertilizer for sure. It's been the tried and true fertilizer for uh, basically all of recorded history. Hey, Broken Vale, donkey poo is good manure. Donkeys are great, aren't they? I love some donkeys. I got to stay in this house where they had some donkeys, and it was I love those. They are actually better guard dogs than dogs are. They will keep if you have chickens or something, they'll keep the foxes and the coyotes and the bobcats out. And they do much better than the dogs do. Uh, Joshua says I try to keep the dogs out of the garden, but it don't always work. Uh, get some donkeys, Joshua. Get some donkeys. Telling you. Hey, for welcome, my sister. Yeah, I still think that manure. Obviously, if you can get what are they some kind of not nitrogen like potassium something and I don't even know what they use. I'm not a farmer. I'll just be pulling stuff out of the air. um, let's say the grid shut down and we're back to the Stone Age. We're going to be using manure again for sure. Uh, yes, they can pass parasites onto the food, Katie. There's all kinds of things that can cause problems, but we've been doing it for years. It's so funny that in America we're not even allowed to drink unpasteurized milk and things like it's literally illegal. Um, and yet that's what everyone did until just less than a century ago. Everyone. It's like how did anybody even survive, right? Yeah, there's a chance of parasites, there's a chance of all kinds of problems, but is what we are doing actually better? Is uh, I've talked about this before. I've known in fact, Katie, you've been out of the country, so it might be a little different because you're probably still eating military food, but there is e- quite literally everyone I've talked to who've gone out of the country for any amount of time, over a month, they have lost drastic amounts of weight, just water weight, eating the same exact diet. In some cases, they've even eaten more because of all the crap that we put in our food, all the chemicals, all the additives we put in there to preserve it. And what are these things benefiting us? It's all in the name of safety, but we see truly how the elites really care for us poor peasants, right? We see that they do such a great job of making sure our best interest and definitely not their own pockets being lined. It is definitely our best interest. That's why we have to pay so much extra for medicine, that other countries pay like pennies on the dollar for because they care so much about us. and we have such strict safety regulations, right? Um, what it is, it's really just about control. It's about money. The love of money is the root of all evil. Uh, there we go. Ocean nitrates. I don't know why I could not think of that word. I was like nitrium. I was like, that's not even a word. It's like combining different things. uh, yeah, Joshua, we can go and get nitrates and we can get all kinds of things that we strip mine uh, the earth for. We absolutely, we've learned better since using manure, but there's everything in manure that helps the. This is I think one of the biggest problems when so you use as I was using a metaphor as well, you know, yes, I'm aware that we don't always use manure now. This reminds me of um, uh, a Christian YouTuber and pastor Glenn Scribner. He talks about how there's this lady Betty the botanist, right? She's this fictional character, so just put that out there because this is a fictional story. But Betty the botanist receives a sample in the mail, and she gets this beautiful plant, and she's like, oh wow, it looks like a long stemmed rose, and she begins to analyze this rose and begins to um, to break it down and to get the compounds in the plant and just study it in various ways. And she's like, it was so thoughtful for someone to send me uh, this in the mail. And Johnny, old Johnny calls up and said, did you get my gift that I sent? Like, oh yes, I began to analyze it in the lab, and it's a wonderful specimen. And Johnny's like, Did you not understand, Betty, what the gift was? Did you not understand why I sent that gift to you? I didn't send you a specimen for you to break down in your lab and to study. I sent you a long-stemmed rose because I am in love with you, and it was an act, a gesture of my love to you. This reminds me of how we read the scriptures, how we understand religion and God. I think that so many people try to take ultra literal approaches to things, and sometimes it's ultra literal when it's convenient for them, and then when it's not, then they it's something different. We are looking at when we read the scriptures, we are given absolutely the actions of Jesus Christ written as a biography. I mean, that's the genre of the Gospels is biography. But we have so many different stories, different parables within the Gospels that are very symbolic. We have prophecies that are very symbolic, and um, then we have supernatural things that happen, poetry, the creation story, early Genesis. In fact, all of Genesis is poetry, ancient Hebrew poetry written in a thing called chiasm. And we take it when it's convenient for us or when we just don't stop to think about what is being portrayed within these pages. We take it ultra literally. We start seeing that gift, that gesture of love, that rose that Christ sends to us to show us how much he loves us. It's so much more than just a gesture of a rose in the mail. And we're like, oh, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm going to. go on living my life. I'm going to analyze this in a way that it wasn't meant to be analyzed. It wasn't meant to be a scientific experiment. It was meant to be a metaphysical gesture of a deep, selfless, and sacrificial love. So, I, for some reason, it just made me think about that because I think that there's this misunderstanding when reading the scriptures. There's no context put into it. Um, it is just used. Now, I see this most of the time by unbelievers, and I'm going by the ones that I see, the popular ones on YouTube or something like that. Watch thousands of hours of them. I'm familiar with most of them. They will bring things up in the scriptures that are prescriptive or not prescriptive, but descriptive. Yes, there's horrible things that happen in the scriptures. There's horrible things that happen in this life. That's exactly what God is saving us from. He is allowing us to see what a life would be like without him. He's allowing us to see what a life would be like where we forge our own path, where we make our own meaning and we are in charge of our own destiny. We follow our hopes and follow our dreams. And he allows us to do this because he will never force himself upon us. Just like the prodigal son, go out, spend all your pennies, all your money on women, booze, and gambling. See how rich and fulfilled your life is. And I know many of us who've done that. Many of us have said, "No, I'm going to live for my desires." I know I have. I'm going to drink and do drugs. I'm going to chase my lustful desires in every direction. I'm going to let it control me. I actually made my identity in those things. And that was a very fun time in my life during most of it when I was in really good shape at least. It was a very fun time, but I felt more empty than I'd ever felt when suddenly I had all the things I was trying to obtain. I was in great shape. I was dating around quite a bit before I met my wife. Things were going great, and man, I was still as empty as I ever was. I said, if I can achieve all my goals, I can actually do this. I proved to myself that I could uh, lose a bunch of weight and get in great shape and change my life in that way. And yet it's still emptiness. Yet it's still suffering and heartbreak. So what's the point? But that is the point, that Christ is saving us from that. He's showing us something deeper. He's showing us something more. He's showing us that there is a profound meaning in our life, and it is only found through Him. Um, okay, let's see here. Chris Helms, you are deluded and talk absolute nonsense. Okay. So much wickedness in the Bible. Good. That's that's absolutely right, Chris. There's so much wickedness in the Bible. I literally just was talking about that. And that's what people see. It's like I see wickedness, which means God is wicked. Your God is wicked and you're speaking nonsense. And there is no meaning in life. There is no God. Or there is no Christian God, at least, because he's the one that I have a real problem with. Um, hey, Emily, welcome. Uh, uh, Christ with Cube, welcome. Jesus loves you too, brother. Okay. Wait, I thought I missed somebody up there. I missed somebody. I apologize for anybody I missed. No, I guess not. I thought I saw somebody up there. Bubba Bacons. Are you in the water right now? Floating on the water, rolling on the river. Hey, Sean Hennigan. Amen. The TV show Night Court. I don't even know what we're talking about there. Papa was a Rolling Stone, CMA. uh, I like the TV show Night Court. Well, I don't know about there was like a remake or something, wasn't there? The original one was great. I used to watch when I was a kid. Um, Cheers was the best though. Uh, says broken. Is it legal to eat a dolphin? It's not legal to eat a dolphin like a porpoise, but the dolphin, the fish, Maui Mai, it's legal. I don't know if that's what he was talking about. Uh, Broken was saying, what I don't get is our export is meat, milk, veggies, but it's cheaper to import meat than from other countries. We have a lot of twisted systems that I think we export a lot of our milk too, but then we import a lot of milk. It's so weird. It's all about the trade and these different, there's like different loopholes that these businesses find because they're just playing this stupid system that our brain dead leaders come up with. So they get because they get kickbacks for them. Hello, Triple Adrian. Where did you find it? Uh, okay, I'm way out of there. John says I got my daughter a can of dolphin. uh, it was a stuffy animal in a can. Did it pop out at her? uh, oh, uh, brand new handle. You look like a professional thumb wrestler. Very good. Got the strong ones there. Um, I got the sweet moves on thumb wrestling, man. Oh, no problem, John. You don't have to be sorry about that. Stillers, brand new handle. Yep. Let's hope their new moves do some good. But um, I wanted to get into something I wanted to get into the other night, but I I missed a bunch of notes, and I was talking about in First and Second Kings in the scriptures. They were written during a time in Israel's history when they had been beaten and broken. They were in quite literally in exile, in the Babylonian exile. Um, they were kind of looking back on their glory days when they had great kings like David and Solomon, and God was working closely with the people, guiding them to his glory. But there is an honest reflection in the scriptures that show that those good times were not really as great as they remembered them. In fact, the hindsight that highlights the best of times, yet turns an eye to the bad, is what we usually do. It was during the reign of Israel's great kings that set the stage for the Babylonian occupation, and the cracks in the foundation were beginning to show. We started to see David was faithful. He sinned horribly, but he repented for it. But then Solomon, man, Solomon really got lost in his lust. Um, we see the best of times in Israel's history were opening the doors to corruption and evil. David had been a beautiful servant of the Lord and then committed one of the most atrocious acts when he impregnated his greatest friend and general's wife, Bathsheba, and then had to kill him, Uriah, because he would not come home and sleep with his wife to cover up the pregnancy. It was a huge scandal, a huge scandal. In fact, within Christ's own genealogy in the book of Matthew, Matthew, strangely, but everything's there for a meaning. He mentions three different women, and that's not what Jewish genealogies did. They did not mention women, and the women that he mentioned were all part of some kind of scandal. And what was amazing is those women were all um, were all Gentiles, were all non-Jews. Tamar may have been the only exception, but she was the one who married the son of Judah. He died. Then she married. Then the tradition goes she goes on to the next son. That son died, and then Judah's like, I'm done giving you my sons. I'll just, you know, sorry about your bad luck. I'm just done with you. So what she did was she dressed up as a prostitute, disguised herself, and slept with Judah, getting pregnant by him. And then when he found out she was pregnant, he got furious. He said, whoever's baby this is, they're gonna pay for this. They're gonna be put to death. And she's like, well, I have the father of the baby's garment right here, and produced Judah's piece of his garment that he left there. And he's like, oh, touche, good move there, Tamar. This is how she tricked her way into Christ's bloodline. Then you have the next example that it's given in the genealogy of Matthew, and that was Rahab, which Rahab was a prostitute who was a Canaanite who helped the Israelites escape when they were spying on the Canaanites. I talked about it a lot. They were spying. They saw that Canaan was full of great big giants, literal giants, and so they uh, they had this prostitute who said, "I will help you get out. Just I've seen what your Lord has done." She heard about what he had done in getting them out of Egypt and the Red Sea, and said, "Please, just whenever you take the city, just spare me and my family, and allow me to worship your God." And of course, they did, and she ended up having a marrying into the faith. And then there was a Moabite, and if you don't know anything about Moab, it spawns from Sodom and Gomorrah and the horrible things that happened after the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. But Moab, Ruth was this sweet and beautiful and loyal woman, and she was a Moabite. She was a Gentile. Those were the women besides Mary that were mentioned in Christ's bloodline, but also mentioned the wife of Uriah when talking about Bathsheba, who was the father of Solomon, or the mother of Solomon, excuse me. Wouldn't even say her name, even though he mentioned these other women by name, because that scandal was so atrocious to even the Jews. But you see that recapping in First and Second Kings. They're recapping all these things that happened during these times, because there were written records and they were recording it. Um, the best of times in Israel's history, those corruptions, those evils were beginning to fester. And this teaches us about our lives as well. Going on during the times of Solomon, Israel had more power than and wealth than any nation on earth. He had more wisdom and wealth than any king ever has or will ever have. In Solomon's knowledge, Israel finally achieved what they believed to be divine blessing and they were glorified. However, Israel was coming apart at the seams. Solomon, in all his wealth and knowledge, was being ripped apart because from God because of his lust. He had 700 wives and 300 concubines, and he allowed them all to worship their gods within the borders of Jerusalem. That's in First Kings 11:3 through 8. It says, "For Solomon went after the Asherah, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. For Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and did not wholly follow the Lord, as David his father had done. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and Moloch, the abomination of the Ammonites, on the mountain east of Jerusalem. He did this for all his foreign wives who made offerings and sacrificed to their gods." These stories teach us that the root of our problems often originate in good times as we indulge in the desires of the flesh because they are abundant. The good times, the times of peace and prosperity, those things they are just there for our taking. It's so easy. How easy is it now? I know many men and a lot of women as well, looking at online adult content, rhymes with corn, just horrific things that we're exposing ourselves to. I'm no prude. I understand this. It's right there. It's so easy. And it's so much easier, by the way, than going out and actually meeting people and connecting with people. Think about when I've talked about AI taking all of our jobs in the future. I've talked about the dangers of basically no one having a job, and you have a bunch of people without any meaning and purpose in life. What about when AI, because they're already pretty close to doing this, they make all those sex robots, and they are the perfect partner for men and for women. You don't have to hear the complaining from your spouse or your significant others. You don't have to deal with the problems you have with other people. What is that? I forget who said it. It was some modernist psychologist, I believe, said hell is other people. And I remember the proverbs that was just quoted. It's better to live in a desert than have an angry wife. We have a society where we think about only ourselves. We have this selfish pride and this brokenness that we feel is empowerment. And you have all over, and I'm not saying it's all a bad thing or anything, but women have decided that no, we're equal with men, so they're going to be CEOs and do the same exact jobs as men do, and because of that, it's going to lead to this utopia of equality, and everyone's going to have this finally understand true meaning and purpose in life. And I can tell you that the closer we've gotten to that being a reality, the more people yearn to be back in the traditional roles that we used to be in. Yes, there were problems in the past. There always have been problems. Our problems always stem from the same things. It's our own brokenness, our own corrupt human nature. But being a stay-at-home mother for the women who want that, which is sadly no longer even an option for many women, it's been taken from them. It's this cycle. We have to force women to work now because they are equal to men in ways that the, men and women are both valuable in much different ways. We are uniquely suited to certain things. And we try to fix these problems that sometimes aren't even problems to begin with. For instance, the women's right movement. I never really looked into it much. The women getting the right to vote, but oddly enough, when women needed to get the right to vote to stir up enough votes to get it to pass, I believe it was the 19th Amendment. I could be wrong about that. To stir up enough votes to get it to pass, they had to make sure that women could not vote on it because women at the time overwhelmingly did not want to vote. And they didn't want to get in politics at all. They were happy, very happy in the role that they were in. And that role was a lot of times just as valuable, if not more valuable than the men's role. But we've created these false narratives that it has to be a certain way. We see it also in times of deep suffering. We turn to whatever we can to escape the pain. Either either way, we remember how the vice would make us happy, right? So when we get in these times of peace and plenty, where we feel like we're empty still, but yet we have such abundance, we can use these escapes, and that makes us feel even worse, and it makes us feel even emptier, and it begins this spiral out of control. But we keep turning back to those vices a lot of times. We keep turning back to those sins because it made us, at the very least, euphoric for a small amount of time, and it erased the agony that followed as a consequence of indulging in these desires. Um, this is the hair of the dog, right? In order to get rid of the hangover, you got to drink some more booze, and that just thrusts you deeper into to alcoholism or whatever problems you're going to be thrust into. If we hold on to anger and bitterness, it's the same type of thing. It will plague us until we locate where it originated and how this disease keeps corrupting us. If we don't treat our problems like a wound, they will continue to fester and until they devour us. Jesus teaches us to get to the root of the problem. He shows us that the trials and tribulations we endured, no matter how awful, are necessary to break us from the chains of the darkness. We must always be broken down and built back up. It is a process. It is constantly being broken down and built back up until we are finally ready to give our lives over to Christ, and he puts us together the way we were supposed to be. And yet it's still a process. And if we don't continue this process, if we don't keep this growth going, learning from our mistakes instead of continuing to make those mistakes, and which is the definition of insanity, we will stay stagnant and rotting. Once we are a new creation in Christ, then the process of refinement and growth begins. The key is to stop growing in a way in which we desire, to keep growing in a way that glorifies God. If our sights aren't set on Jesus, we will quickly stray and wander back into the trappings of our past. Our minds keep trying to cope with various traumas and tragedies without Christ's guidance. We will remain treating these wounds with what the world tells us will make us feel better. And what the world tells us will make us feel better is just like a band aid on a black hole. While Jesus gives us true direction, meaning, purpose, hope, and love, and so much more. I talked about Solomon, and he was seen as this great king because of his wisdom and wealth. He was he was in a deep relationship with God when he was young. God told him that he would continue to be blessed as long as he kept God's commandments, and the way his father had. His reign was great. He built the holy temple, but then his downfall came when his wisdom became worldly instead of holding fast to the glory of God. That is the difference between the wisdom that God gives us and the knowledge of good and evil that the world gives us. There's a stark contrast, and I think that it's seen best through Solomon, because Solomon had the wisdom of God. He did. It was a gift from God. And through his desires and his lust and his separating himself from God, it then became worldly, and it all of Israel paid for it. All of it. They continued to crumble because of what their great king had fallen into. The same will always happen to us, by the way. There is no tragedy or trauma that God does not use to bring the greatest good from. But we often don't trust him enough to even attempt to find the lessons he is teaching us. Instead, we continue to try to forge our own path and to live by our pride and our desire, a nature that is seen all the way back in Adam and Eve in creation. They wanted to be their own God, and we remain lost in that darkness to this day, making the same mistakes that Adam and Eve made. All of us. But Jesus is the light of the world, our way in the darkness. All of us are saved by his sacrifice, if only we choose to put our faith in him. That saving faith is faith that is working through love, because love is the only thing that is worth sacrificing for. It is the only thing that will sustain us. All of the suffering and all of the tragedy is worth it when we feel the life-giving love of Jesus Christ. After experiencing this, nothing else matters. When we see what true meaning and purpose is through him. And let me get back to the comments. I think this is what God has been convicting me the most of lately. It is how to move forward in a relationship with him, because we're not just saved and then it's like, okay, thank you, Lord. Okay, now let's just hope that all this love that you showed me, I felt this love in your presence, but let's just hope that gets me through. That's not what that love is for. That love is there to be with you, to walk with you, to work with you. That is how God shows us from the very beginning From Genesis 3 in the Garden of Eden, what is God doing? He goes on walks along with Adam and Eve in the garden. Every the two biggest examples of God God's great revelation in the New Testament. We have the road to Damascus, where the Apostle Paul, then named Saul, was blinded by the divine form of Jesus Christ while walking to Damascus. And then we have the the other type of revelation, which is the road to Emmaus, where the two men were walking along the road and Jesus Christ just starts walking alongside of him. They don't know who he is. They were talking about him because they thought he had died upon the cross and didn't know he had been resurrected. And he was with them the whole day, and they didn't know until he was gone. And one of my favorite lines is they said to each other, "Did not our hearts burn within us as he opened up the scriptures on the road, as he taught us the scriptures?" Our hearts burned within us because that's what that whole story, the road to Emmaus, was about. He was walking alongside of them, and he began to show how all scriptures pointed to him. It's all pointing to him, and he is the destination. He is the alpha, he is the omega, he is the universal constant, the true north, the moral compass. All things converge at the cross. And in our lives, when we fall short of that cross, and when we just decide, no, I'm going to forge my own path, then we will feel the consequences of that. It is an it is a road full of pleasure. It is a road full of desires fulfilled. And then sadly, that road, the easy road, is the road to destruction, where the gate is wide. And Jesus says that the road is hard. The gate is narrow that leads to life. It's treachery. It's treacherous. We go through trials and tribulations over and over, and unless you are equipped with that power of the Holy Spirit, God Himself, you're not going to have the desire, the will to even go forward on that path. Because until you've experienced that love, there is no reason to expose yourself to that kind of suffering. Until you've experienced that love, it just, you want to avoid suffering at all cost unless that that cost is apparent to you. And like for instance, obviously there's suffering that goes into getting in shape. You're quite literally, when you're working out, you're ripping your muscles and ripping into them and tearing them so they can constantly repair. But it's healthy. You live a healthier life that way. It's something that you decide it's worth suffering for, so I can feel better, and it's usually for prideful purposes. It's usually so I can go out and get uh, a good looking man or woman to marry me, or to um, whatever it may be, to be better suited to get a job promotion, or we're thinking about things like that. The meaning that Christ gives us is so profound that we begin to see that we will lay our lives down, because Christ promises us, and we trust him more than we trust in anything, that there is eternal life through him. Hey, Sophia, welcome. Hey Tate, when we give women more rights, the ability to vote, become a leader, a wife, a businesswoman, a politician, society gets better. Also, no, women weren't like, nah, I don't want rights to vote. Uh, and Katie says I was confusing history, but I wasn't. They had to ban women from being able to even have a say in it in order to get men. And by the way, these were often men who um, they were better off because they wanted to have these shallow relationships with women. They were better off after that. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, that what we've been taught, because that's what we have been taught. But I'm going to get the receipts for it. I will bring it up for you another time. There's actually a couple books that I was looking into on this, but I'll get a better I'll get some better receipts and bring them to you. Um, uh, Tate says most people don't work out to get with people. That's just an assumption of yours, Josh. Is that right, Tate? Is it not to? I think that most people are usually doing it for multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is because we want to be attractive to others. We want to be attractive. Maybe it's even just to our current spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend, right? So we work out so we can be more attractive to them and we can feel better about ourselves, and it's worth suffering for. Um, I know I worked as a personal trainer for a few years, and I can tell you, while many of the women may not have said so, a lot of the women were in there to look better for men. Um, it was a strange time in my life, but and the men overwhelmingly were in there to look better for women. It's not always the case. Sometimes they were training for something else. Sometimes they were just gym rats, and but for the most part, that was why they were in there. Uh, Gabriel, if Jesus really wanted true believers, he would have manifested an iPhone 18 out of clay. Um, yeah, so if you walk along the sidewalk, um, this is what I one of the never mind. It's not even. I know that was just a joke. Ghost by YouTube, welcome, brother. Um, Gabe, Christianity is based on faith, not obedience. We are no longer under the law. Salvation isn't based on obedience. Obedience is a result of salvation. Keep up. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Let me see what Gabe was saying. Is he another legalist? Faith produces obedience. Love produces obedience. If you are entering into a relationship with someone, you don't you aren't required to do works for them to prove your love for them. You do it out of gratitude. Okay, I don't. I wasn't seeing. Um, Judaism and Islam are nothing like Christianity. They are they are about following the law. We are about salvation through Christ. Acceptance comes first. Um, all right, Tate. Yes, I am sure that is not the main reason why people, for again, not saying that everybody, um, you may be simply doing it because you just for health reasons, but I can tell you that overwhelmingly, when I was a personal trainer, um, it was so people could hook up with other people. It was so people could look good. There's nothing wrong with that. If you are married and you want to look good for your wife, for your husband, there's nothing wrong with. In fact, it's pretty good. When people stop caring about that, that's you should love each other no matter what. But is that how the world works nowadays? Is that how um, when we have more than half of marriages end in divorce? Is that what the world really cares about? Is till death do us part? No, it's till I feel like moving on to something else because I don't feel like I'm in this relationship getting enough from it because probably you and the other person, or at the very least one of you, is very selfish and listening to what the world says. And the world says, just like what you said, Tate, the world is so much better when women are in every part of society doing the same exact roles as men in the same way because there is no difference between man and woman, and that is what makes the world such a better place. It is not the truth. It is not, but we've been told that for so long that we believe it. And we look at what the Bible says about relationships, and of course, it's twisted and skewed like some. It is actually radically feminist as far as women are equal to men in value in life, is salvation terms, but we are very different as far as what we were created for. And we were all created to be a part of this beautiful world that has become a fallen world, which is why we have such emptiness and so many mental problems and just feel lost and afraid and alone within it. But this world that you say, Tate, that you say is so much better because everybody is now equal. Are they? Is everything equal? I see the rates of people ending their own lives have gone up like crazy. Why is that? If we're so much better, what, where's all this happiness? We have everything we could possibly want. We have everything we could possibly want. This is what I'm saying though, Tate. Women had a right. They were absolutely able to go out and work before this. They absolutely were able to go out and have these jobs. There was no laws against it. There was nobody stopping them for sure. Now our world is basically there's no choice. it's forcing women into those roles. It's forcing them to not be able to stay at home if they want to, because you need dual incomes to take care of a family now, because things have gotten so crazy expensive, because we built a world that is it's really it's about a consumer world in America, especially. There are so many problems that have just made us void of any kind of meaning and purpose. And again, AI is going to make things even worse. It's going to basically be, we're going to have some kind of universal basic income, and people are going to love that at first, and then eventually it's not going to be long before they start really having an existential crisis. It was what, a couple months in 2020 when the lockdowns happened. It was a couple months of telling not even the whole workforce, but just a fraction of the workforce, about 30 to 40%, that they couldn't even go to work before people were rioting in the streets. And by the way, during that time, it was, oh, you can't go to church, you can't go to most certain types of jobs, but you can definitely still go to the ABC store and buy alcohol. You can definitely go out and riot in the streets, as long as it's an approved message from the powers that be. We are seeing the cracks in the foundation. We are seeing this world is falling apart, because we are trying to force some idea of what the world says is a good life. When you look at the figures that really started this women's movement, and Margaret Sanger was a big part of it as well. um, they were miserable people. They were. And again, the majority of the women at the time did not agree with them in almost any way. And again, I'm not here saying that women shouldn't have the right to vote and to and to do these jobs, because they already did have the right to do these jobs. But we have made it such a mainstay that women have to go out and do jobs the same way men do. And it's breaking everything down. And this is my main point. We're coming to this, we're coming to a head in all of it. It's this existential crisis. And whether that really becomes a non-point going forward, because going forward it is going to be a completely new problem we're dealing with, which is AI. And uh, Gabriel says Martin Luther was a miserable person. Oh, um, Ghost by YouTube says Babylon is a paganistic system, and it doesn't mean geography broken. Let's see. 70B dog, or 70B dog. Can't wait till this guy finds out who's really behind this. LOL. Follow the white rabbit, my guy. Oh, I have been studying this for sure. I did I didn't set out to study it, but I've absolutely studied it. And I know the who is behind all this. It's the same one who's been behind it the whole time. The powers and principalities in the heavenly places, the spiritual forces of evil in over this present darkness are the ones who are behind it, and they use the elites, the ones who uh, sometimes they're making themselves known, but most of them you probably never even heard their names. And there is this deep depravity, and there's agenda upon agenda upon agenda that is social engineering this world. And I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory, just the same way that oh, there's the elites have this island, and they're sending all they're trafficking all the women to it, the young girls, and they're actually eating babies there and worshiping Baal and Moloch and all of these, all these biblical evil gods. And that's conspiracy theory stuff, right? It's conspiracy theory stuff. Yeah, it definitely, you would be laughed at like crazy just a few years ago. But people started waking up to this stuff, and the evil is real. What I'm saying is the way that the narrative the world gives us of what is good and what is going to make you happy, it is a lie. And when you do not put your faith in what Christ says, you are putting your faith in the narrative of your own desires and the narrative of worldly things. And when you put your faith in that, then you're going to you're going to experience the consequences, or even worse, you're going to conform to it and make your identity in those things. And you will live a shallow existence without truly ever knowing what the promise of Christ is. Because again, we are not just saved and just left there, and that's the end of it. We are saved by Jesus Christ, and he dies upon that cross, not so we don't have to show us how to. And we go forward as a suffering servant. But he bears the suffering for us, and we are then giving our lives to bringing forth the new Eden. Um, well, let's see here. Okay. Ken says, Josh, how long would those people do? How long would those people do those horrific acts if God didn't give those demons actual power? Uh, Ken, once again, you are saying God should have just gotten rid of evil. And what I'm saying is, then he might start with you, Ken. He might start with me. He's going to eliminate all of mankind. You are just calling to have mankind just wiped away. That's exactly what you're calling for, because all who have free will are capable of great evil. And that is the world that God set up, because he did not want slaves or robots, including the angels, by the way. And that's who really kicked off this problem. He didn't this again, the suffering and the evil is antithetical to him, but he's using the suffering and evil, he's using all of the choices we make to choose evil and to choose bad, and he's using those rebellions to bring the greatest good for mankind out of it. um it's it is not just some video game creator, and what he's doing is he's creating this perfect little utopia. Oh, if you want to look at it as a video game, we'll try to use that. Jesus Christ, we are basically just the NPCs, but he's giving us free choice to go and choose to remain living life as a non-player character, or to be connected to the source code, be connected to the creator of everything, and then to go forward fixing the world instead of continuing to break it. If this world was just created perfectly and then we were set inside of it, there is no meaning in that. There is nothing that is gained from that. And and if if you think, well, God, if he's all loving, then that's the world he would have given us, then you're just falling once again into I think I know better than God, which is what I see over and over again. I think I know better than God. That's what Adam and Eve thought. I know better than God. I can do a better job than God. That's what the serpent's telling me, that if I just eat this fruit, that I will be just like him. I will know just like him. We keep thinking that, and that is not reality. He is using our brokenness, our horrible choices to do evil things, and he's using that to wake us up, to bring about the most good for mankind, the most good for us. We are all redeemed in the midst of slavery. Many of us are redeemed in the midst of bad marriages and broken relationships. And why are I'm trying to get to the point of why the relationships are broken nowadays. It is because we've gotten so far from Christ, and we've gotten so far into our own idea of what life should be. We're going to make our own meaning out of this life. Why shouldn't I be allowed to have happiness the way I want it? I should make my own meaning. That is the same choice that Adam and Eve made over and over and over again. I'm going to forge my own path. I'm going to be the arbiter of my own destiny. Um, Joshua, you say in a perfect world. Let's see. Uh, Tate was saying, okay, if you have two people and they do the same exact thing, not accounting for other factors, and the woman gets paid less, that is illegal. That's true, and the women cannot sue the hell out of them, or the women can sue the hell out of them. Yeah, that's absolutely right. But we force it. Like, okay, here's a good example. What was it? The women's soccer team. I think it was. I don't know if it was the U.S. It was like the professional soccer or whatever. The women's soccer team. They made this huge deal about how they were making like less than what the men were, and they demanded that they be paid the same way as the men were getting paid. And then, people started pointing out, hey, look at the results. Look at the games. Like, obviously, men are, uh, for the most part, better athletes. Not for the most part. It's all around. And people wanted to go see the men play more than they wanted to go see the women play. So they would draw in tens of thousands of dollars, or hundred tens of thousands seats more, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars more in profits. People watching them on TV and things like that. And so they were making more money for the leagues, and the women demanded to be paid the same. But they're not the same. They're not. And you look at, for instance, um, you know, firefighters, right? You have to have a quota where it's so many women, and you have the quota where it's so many women. And what do you do when you have women who they're given a lot less standards than the men? Um, God forbid if there's a woman who ever has to come and lift me up. I'm fine perishing in the fire, I guess, because the woman's not going to be able to pick me up. In fact, the man would probably have trouble picking me up, but they are not the same. And women are so much better at other things because we are made in different ways. And I'm not saying that there's not exceptions to the rules, because there are. There absolutely are. There are women who do better than a lot of men in certain things, and it's quite literally, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, but there's also the rule, and the rule is the general consensus of everything. Um, uh, AC Brown, talking about when Apostle Paul had his out of body experience. Hopefully, you're not saying that that's. Wait, I think I know why you're saying that. Ghost by YouTube says, Mike, worldly things means hearing the ideals, customs, and beliefs of the secular world, using the medium like the internet to fellowship in Christ, and in being of the world. The Bible means, um, uh, Katie, um, I am not wrong. You may get mad that women are not as strong as men. It is a biological reality, and the standards are a lot lower for a woman to become a firefighter, or I'm sure even for military things. Um, it is the way it is. You can say it's sexist all day, but it is the way it is. I can tell you that even having been disabled for 16 years, I can probably still bench press more than 99.999% of the women in the world. I think that, I can't remember what the record for bench press is, but for a long time I had bench pressed more than that before I'd gotten out of high school. Um, so yeah, I know. Again, you take out the averages, you take out the lowest, the weakest, and the strongest of each, and you take the mean, the average strength, and you go by other factors too, and you start looking at that, and you start seeing, hey, there's a big difference. There is a huge difference here. And while I'm glad that women have rights in many ways, that, thank you Jesus Christ for that, and Christianity for that, if I am passed out in a fire, and uh, I got two women coming in trying to pick me up, then I'm just done for. Yay equality. I'm a dead man. um let's see. Sophia says, I would love to be a housewife, a husband, and children. That is the most important job there is, because now we have women who just, and again, not saying it's It's because we have to, almost all the time now, we have to have dual income. So the woman has to leave the child at a daycare center, or just drop them off at school and let the public schools raise our child for us. And that becomes this cycle where they are indoctrinated with whatever. We can pray that somebody good is raising them, but usually it's not. Usually it's just, we rolling the dice there. Um, let's see here. John says, I used to want to be a family man, but I feel like I'm destroyed to be reasonable enough anymore. I've also been solo for 14 plus years, and uh, but now I know myself and I'm loving God again. I know, who knows what'll happen. Yeah, you don't know what will happen, but um, I think a big part of that problem is John, because we have a society where everybody is selfish. I really do. And it affects more men than women because, um, again, women we've been told this great lie that we should be exactly equal in every single way, and it has ruined us. It has ruined this world in so many ways. It has. And we can say, like, going back to, and I will bring more to this, because I do have the receipts for this, but I don't have them on me right now, so I need to get better notes on this. But going back to the beginning of the women's movement, they basically were coming out. They being the early feminists who started this movement. They were saying how awful every woman had it, like they were a prisoner in their home. They were getting beaten. They were just abused, and there was just this awful, horrible life for them. And again, while that was absolutely a reality in some cases, a vast majority, that was not the reality. A vast majority, it was women who were having a wonderful time being housewives, not getting involved in politics, not doing the things that men were doing. And by the way, for a long time, it wasn't all men who were doing that either. For a long time, it was a very select men who were doing it. Only landowners, and only you had to pass certain standards to be able to vote and to get involved in politics and things like that. So yeah, that every standard went out the door. Everything did. Um, but there's so much broken in the world and in our country. But I think that this idea of what the modern idea of equality, not the idea of equality that Christ set forth, because Christ set forth a wonderful idea of equality, that we are all beautiful children in the eyes of God. That does not mean that men and women are were made to be doing the exact same things. Men are not able to have the greatest gift of all, bringing forth life, as women do. And by the way, most of most of that has been taken away from men as well, because we play a part in making a baby, right? And yet, once a woman is pregnant, then it's basically all her choice. Then it's all her choice. She wants to go get that baby aborted. The men have no choice, and that's the way it goes. It's a world that is under the guise of equality. It has gotten horribly evil, horribly evil. Again, Margaret Sanger, the creator of Planned Parenthood, had a huge part of this shaping this early women's movement, women's rights movement. And she was quite literally one of the worst people I've ever read about in history. Adolf Hitler used to praise her and try to model his eugenics program after what she was doing, which was making Planned Parenthood a place where they got rid of the undesirables, she said. She would go to the wives of the Klan members and have tea parties with them, and they would just talk about how they were going to destroy all the black people. This is the women's rights movement birth right here. And now we have again a world where it is, no, we're totally equal. And when you want to slaughter a baby in the womb, which is modern sacrifice, it is yeah, yeah, that's just women's rights right there. That's how great we got it. That's how equal we are. And opponents of this will just bring up like, well, so you're all right with letting people who were scraped or and like schmincest and things like that, you're all right with them, and that is the biggest red herring. That is a tiny percentage of the people who decide to get abortions or those cases, like very insignificant. And even if you were like, okay, well, we'll allow them in cases of that, which I don't agree with either, but we'll allow them in cases of that, then they still wouldn't budge on any of being able to take the life of a child up to the point of birth, because that's what it's become, by the way. There are hundreds of thousands of late term abortions every single year. And that is where, and by the way, there is no medical reason for them. They used to tell the lie that, and they still believe the lie, many people do, that there's medical reasons why these late term abortions have to happen. No, a late term abortion happens, that baby can easily exist outside of the womb. It is these no different than just doing a C-section and removing the baby from the womb at that point. But they decide, no, just kill it. Just kill it. Just sacrifice it to Moloch. Yeah, I get it. The women aren't thinking that. The doctors aren't saying that. But that's exactly the same thing. We are sacrificing under the guise of, oh, well, I just, I'm still young and I got all my life ahead of me. I don't need no kid mucking things up. I don't need that. And I know that I'm going off on different trails here, but I am, yes, Tate, there's no medical reason. Oh, and again, you're like, well, I can go and say all these articles that say they have medical reasons, but yes, of course, that's what they say. But the medical reason given is like, well, there's mental problem. This woman has depression, and her financial situation is just going to making it too rough for her. And so what we're going to do is, even though the child is just days away from being born, we're going to put a drill up in there and drill through its skull. And so yeah, there's absolutely a lot of those cases, by the way, and you will be lied to over and over saying, no, that's not the case. That's not the case. Because we live in a world where they want it that way. The powers want it that way. If you don't think the elites want that, then maybe go look at the Epstein files, where they were trying to cull the poor people in the world. Him and his little buddies there talking about how we need a world where it's just the offspring of smart, intelligent people like us, and not all these stupid people out there. Kind of the same thing that Margaret Sanger was saying when she said, call the undesirables, but just more blunt about it. She didn't have to be. Um, Again, you appeal to who needs appealed to. Margaret Sanger knew to sing a different tune to different people. And her goal was to get rid of the undesirables, including the Black population. And now in the big cities, especially New York City, we have more, far more Black children who are aborted than ever born. You talk about women's rights, that is, how many women were aborted, never given a chance to live. We justify all kinds of evil in this modern world, and what we say is it's just equality. It's just, see how good we have it now. Can't we see? Can't you see how good we have it? There's those babies were just clumps of cells until they came out the birth canal anyway. It is it is the vilest thing, quite literally. And the reason why I get so passionate about it is quite literally this is the main thing that God focused on. The main thing. There were all kinds of other, and people get so mad about all the things that God allowed in the Old Testament, or they think that he was sitting there instructing them to do all these horrible things. No, from the very beginning, he was putting a stop to things like child sacrifice, which now we have more children sacrificed every year probably than all the earlier years combined from these dark religions, just under different guise, different masks for the evil. And because we live in a world where it is just there's sexual freedom, and we're going out, and that's what brings us happiness, just being able to express ourselves. It's my body. I can go out and sleep with whoever I want, and man, I bought into it as a guy. Of course I did. I was like, yeah, I want to sleep around as much as possible. And it was quite literally the emptiest I've ever felt. But uh, okay, let me see where I'm gonna um let me see who you're responding to here. Uh, does a society work without selfishness? Joshua JKD says. Does a society work without selfishness? Um, a society thrives without selfishness. Now, there's definitely, I do see what you're saying though as well, Joshua, because there is an element of, you see, if you begin to live your life in service to others, uh, not living your life for, because everyone needs motivation for sure, and Christ gives us that motivation. It's not to live life to acquire wealth and beauty and fame and all those things. It is to live a life where we bring about the perfection that Christ is going to bring at the end. The promise that he made to us, that we can be participants in the rescue and redemption of mankind. We can be arbiters of this new Eden, and that is why we've seen these great changes in the world. That is why we've seen charity the way we see charity, because there was not that same idea of charity without expecting anything in return before Christ. That's why we see women's rights and children's rights. Um, they were, again, listening to that history book called Dominion by Tom Holland, not Spider Man, Tom Holland. I have to always say that. Um, there was no difference than going and urinating than basically forcing yourself onto a sex slave. They would have just these discarded humans, usually, and when they were children, they were uh, sent, if they weren't just killed outright, and when they were infants, they were sent to the temples or whoever was paying some money for them, and they would be raised as sex slaves. And there would be dozens of them times in places that were like rest stops. And so the armies would be going along, the Roman or Greek armies would be marching along, and they would just stop and go and, use the bathroom. And then, oh, you want to go and have your way with one of the sex slaves? Going ahead. Because if you were more powerful than an other, it doesn't matter, man or woman, by the way, if you were more powerful than an other, then it was your right to go and to have your way with them. It quite literally was. I, I I don't understand why this reality was erased. Probably because we don't want to think about that reality, or maybe it's because the powers that be have been trying desperately to bring it back to that reality, and they've been doing a pretty damn good job. Because where's the outrage for the Epstein files? There's a lot of fake outrage, but what are we actually doing about it? What's actually getting done? Neither one of the powers that be, neither Republicans or Democrats or any other power across the world are doing anything about this stuff because, well, they're all involved in it. It doesn't matter who you look up to on either side, they're all involved in it. Jeffrey Epstein would have been just called a senator in the time of Rome. It's an awful reality. But that is exactly why we need Christ so much, because he gave us an end to the children being just sold into sex slavery like this, and then just killed when they weren't needed at all or wanted at all. We gave actual value on the lives of the poor, the weak, the oppressed, the persecuted. When the Greeks or the Romans decided they're just going to throw their children in the woods and let them die, the Christians would go out and gather them up and raise them in loving Christian homes. This is the beginning of the hope that was beginning to spread. And yeah, it hit a bunch of stumbling blocks for sure. But this is the world that Christ taught, to bring a light to the darkness, to make public hospitals. If you enjoy public hospitals, then you should enjoy what Jesus Christ did for us. If you enjoy uh, education, unless you were, again, a politician, an ultra elite, wealthy person, or a soldier, you weren't going to go through any kind of education. And you definitely wouldn't have access to medical care. Um, okay, let's see. Joshua says, "Who is drilling into baby skulls?" That's what happens, especially in late term abortions. They just drill into the baby skull. In the extreme cases, what they do is, and this is, you can fact check me on it. I know there's many sources that are trying to say no, it's not the case, but it is. I looked this up a lot back in the day. Um, they would quite literally, as the woman was giving birth, they would hold the baby in the birth canal and drill into the baby's head. As long as its head was not out of the birth canal, it was perfectly legal in many states. That's modern child sacrifice. Hey, Nazia, welcome, my sister. It's great to see you, Nazia. Um, and Nazia, I know that you probably don't care about the moderator thing. I made you a mod. I know you don't have to use it, but we love you, my sister. Okay, let's see. Orange Sunrise, welcome. Sacrifices to be burdened by something being taken away, like a lamb given up. But these people unburden themselves in the world, but their spirit is burdened. It is an inversion of sacrifice. Uh, yeah, it is still. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that for sure. Um, so again, it's not every case, but a vast majority of abortions is basically birth control. Oh, slip that one slipped by. Got to get rid of that. Take care of that problem for us. That undue problem, like it is some sort of inconvenience. Like this human life is some sort of, that's the kind, this is the mindset that this world has put on human life. And it is pure evil. It really is. And I'm not saying that everybody who believes in it is pure evil. I'm saying that you've been seduced by this pure evil. You absolutely have. Um, you've been told over and over that this is the way it should be. And what in this world do you think? Do you think this world looks so great that this is the way that it should be, the way that we've been living it? How's it life going for everybody? I'm sure things are just great, just perfect. And if they are for a little while, just give it a little bit. Um, okay. Uh, oh, now Tate was saying did a quick search on that. It was a very rare procedure back then, and it's illegal and doesn't happen. They have better method. They have better methods of killing them now. Okay, better methods of offing those babies. Um, hey, Fireborn brother. Uh, Let me see. For the love of God was made manifest among us, that God sent us his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. Amen. Broken Veil said people always have good stories. Let's see here. Oh, wow. God bless you too, Nazia. We love you so much, my sister. Um, Gabriel says, I would rather be a wanted child. Oh, okay. Yeah, those unwanted child. So, Gabriel, so what you're saying is we should go to the orphanage and we should make sure we just get rid of all them too, because they're a huge inconvenience on the world. Because, by the way, thank you, Christianity, for even taking care of orphans, unwanted children. Thank you. Oh, but those are kids are worthless anyway because they should have been off before they were even able to be born. That is the kind of mindset right there uh, that unfortunately many in the world have. Yeah, I agree, Joshua. There is definitely an element of selfishness in society. There's always going to be, well, not always, but for the most part, there's going to be for sure. But the less of it we have, the better. The less of it we have, the more we start taking care of each other, and not in a forced way like Marxism, because that is even worse. When the government forces you to be loving and fair, that is what leads to more people in Marxist secular societies in the past 100 years have perished than every war in history combined. Um, Sojo says fetal homicide law says it's a human. Then on the flip side, it says it's not a human if you do it to yourself. Something can't be a living human being on one hand and then cease to be living on the other. That's absolutely right. So yeah, if like for instance, I don't know if it's still that case in California, but it used to be. If a someone shot and killed a pregnant woman, they would be charged with a double homicide, and that is assuming that the baby living within the mother was an actual human being. But then you could, in California, also kill it up until the very moment of birth, for sure. Um, and that's true, Gabriel. You'd have less martyrs if you didn't believe in the afterlife. If I didn't believe in if I didn't believe in God or the afterlife, man, I would be eh, selfish as hell. I really would be. I would be so selfish. Um, why not be? What's the point of not being? If there's no God, there's no afterlife, there's no meaning or purpose to this life except for feeling as good as possible for as long as possible. I mean, I would just I'd probably just stay high all the time, honestly. I mean, why not, right? Um, yeah, maybe move on to something else every now and then, but I'd probably be so addicted. So, uh, okay. What's the straw man take? There's whiskey with waters. Welcome to bacon. I've loved bacon since '86, baby. I've probably loved bacon longer than that whiskey. Uh, what is uh wait, omelets for the win. Wait, what is happening here? Um, uh, 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 John, yeah, please don't. Listen, I love you, my brother, and please don't. I've already said, and we already know this, and people are going to get aggravated from time to time for sure. But there's going to be trial and error in here. Um, oh, let's see here. Oh, by the way, oh yeah, and John's not talking about me. John, please reach out to me because that second part there, I know what you're talking about. You had mentioned it in your email. Um, I went back and I was looking at that, and I think I saw what you were talking about, and I think it was a mistype, brother. I really do. I think it was a typo, and it looked the way that you took it for sure. But I'm almost certain going back and looking at it again, it was a typo of uh, about you and the Christian thing, my brother. Let's see. Ghost by YouTube says, "I believe you, buddy. LOL. I was there, but there was a time when everyone was talking about bacon online." Oh man, so many different conversations going. uh, that's great, whiskey. Your cholesterol is top notch. That's great, brother. I've seen you. You look like you're in good shape, my brother. The- I think that that's another. That's one of the biggest lies that was told to us. That there, my wife came up to me a couple months ago. It was like they said bacon's a carcinogen, like full of carcinogens, and I'm like, okay, so what isn't really? What is it? I'll take it. Let's see here. That's right, Sophia. We all got to stick together and pray and be nice to each other. It's not, yeah. uh, I think it is. um, we all, I think, and from time to time, get a little too easily offended. Um, I I think that's one of the benefits of me growing up in uh, my friends and I were always roasting each other, busting each other's chops. So I really can take pretty much anything. I even when people are being seriously mad at me, it really doesn't bother me because again, the fact that I did not want to live anymore and that Christ saved me, there's nothing, no other kind of validation I need. Nothing at all that I need in my life except for Christ and his love. And that's for everyone, by the way. I'm nobody special. It's there for everyone. And when you experience that, when you say, wow, okay, yeah, I got some people over here that are angry with me. I'm not doing certain things the right way this way. My husband or wife, they hate me, or they're always nagging at me, and uh or whatever it may be. Quite literally, yes, while things can get annoying for sure, none of it matters because you know that the author of life himself, the Lord of the universe, loves you so much that when you were tied to that whipping post about to get 91 lashes, a death sentence, he tore his shirt in the back and wrapped his arms around you and took the punishment for you. That's how much our Lord loves us. And when you fully grasp that, when you fully understand that, there is no more fear. True love erases that fear. And don't feel bad if you haven't had that full experience. That is something to look forward to because it will happen. Seek him and you will find him. Ask him and you will be answered. It's not going to be in the way or when you want it to be because you don't know the method and the time in which it will best serve you. But God does. God absolutely does. And through the love that we share with Him, we are saved. Through the love that we share with Him, we are able to go out and to love others and to bring that love and light into the world and to make the world a better place, to bring light to the darkest places. And believe me, it's not always going to be, oh, uh, uh, you get accepted and loved and everywhere you go. And it's just this idea of like this sharing and this love with everybody. And it's just going to be so great. It is great, but there's going to be a lot of people who despise you for that because they want that for themselves but they aren't willing to sacrifice to get it. They aren't willing to go and put the time and effort into seeking God because they are too trapped in their own uh desires or their own loop of self-destruction. Remember Jesus said, if the world hates you, remember it hated me first. If you are persecuted for my sake, then you are um, yours is the kingdom of heaven, he said. Okay, let's see. All right. Oh, ninjometry. So, again, funny trolls only. Uh, all right. I'm gonna scroll. I'm trying to get into. I missed like a lot here. All right. Fireborn says, "But the Advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I've said to you." John 14. The Holy Spirit, absolutely. Oh, here we go. Ken. I don't know how many times we can go over this thing. So um, let me go and see what you were originally saying about it. Yeah. So Ken, that is probably that verse is the one I most hear atheists quoting. Um, that verse does not talk about anything about um, killing children and or abortion. Ken. And let's see, because it has been absolutely scholars have studied it. The language that is used is war language. It is like me. In fact, you know what? I just heard somebody else using a great example. Like you guys give me an answer. Who's the goat? MJ or LeBron? We'll see what you guys say. Hey, Carl, welcome, my brother. You guys tell me who the goat is, MJ or LeBron. Let me get a consensus here of one way or the other. There's Steve Bano. Shouldn't we thank all the, let's say, characters in God's story? Nope. Um, uh, Fireborn says, I never watched LeBron play. Katie Smith says, Michael Jordan and Larry Bird. Um, let's see. Let's get a couple more so we can have a consensus. So we got one MJ. Ken was saying Larry Bird. We got two Larry Birds. That wasn't even part of the question. I liked Larry Bird, but I'm not a huge basketball fan, but I would definitely say MJ over Larry Bird. Um, let's see. Anybody else? Anybody else want to answer? Oh, Steve Bennett says the goat isn't MJ or it's another guy in the future. No, that's not an answer. MJ or LeBron. Magic Johnson says Gabriel. Um, this is good. Okay, so let's see. Uh, um, nobody else. Okay, nobody else going to answer. So we've got basically, yeah. Um, We got to one more person to answer. MJ or LeBron? So we're going to say, okay, I guess apparently Larry Bird is the GOAT now. Okay, so Sophia says, what's the LeBron? This is, there we go, Ken. Ken says Michael Jordan. So we got two Michael Jordans and a couple Larry Birds. And Sophia says, what's the LeBron? This is the point. And forgive me, I forget the guy I was listening to. He was a student of Michael Heiser that was saying it. He said, so how do we know what the hell I was talking about? Sophia obviously did, and she's like, "What's a LeBron?" She might have been joking because like MJ is the goat, but who is MJ? Uh, were we talking about Mary Jane from Spider Man? Were we talking about Magic Johnson? Uh, how do we know that I was talking about basketball? How do we know what what I was saying? Like a, are you saying that this MJ or this LeBron are a furry little creature called like a goat? And they're out there eating in the field. By the way, I just saw my goats today. I went out and was feeding them. Um, how do we know the context? This is what you come up with when when you're talking about things like the war language that is happening, go kill every man, woman, and child that was talked about in the Old Testament. It is hyperbolic, symbolic language. You guys knew what I was talking about. You knew I was talking about Michael Jordan or LeBron James in the National Basketball League. And even though most of you didn't answer the correct way, you understood context. Something that if you erase all the modern context and you go back 100 years, you go ask somebody 100 years ago, MJ or LeBron, who's the GOAT? They're going to be like, I don't have any goats. I don't know. I've never met a goat named MJ or LeBron. What are you talking about? I'm working a bank. I don't know. I don't have goats. The context is everything, and we absolutely miss the context. There is no place in the scriptures where it says go out and wipe out all the men, women, and children, go kill everyone for no reason, by the way. And then they just go and they wipe out all these men, women, and children, and then that society is gone because they've wiped out every last living soul there. No, they quite literally, in almost every context, it is within the same chapter, or sometimes even the maybe a couple verses past that, where it says, oh well, don't go intermarry with those people in Canaan, because they're worshiping gods like Moloch and Baal, and where they're sacrificing children, and they are laying out a context that is not saying what the English says it is going to say. Just like uh, what I was talking about in, I don't know if I can find this or not because it's been a while, but um, I bring it up every single time because it is completely, it should prove my point, but uh, nobody really ever listens. So um, when in Genesis 9, Noah passes out naked, drunk on wine, and his son Ham comes and gazes upon his nakedness. And his father wakes up and then curses not Ham, his child, for gazing upon his nakedness, apparently laughing at his naked body, or doing something maybe inappropriate to his naked body. He curses his unborn child, Canaan. And oh, I have it right here. We're like, oh well, there's some weird thing that Noah's son did to him, or maybe he snickered at him and he got upset because he was drunk. No, what Genesis 9 is talking about is when Noah was passed out naked, Ham went and laid with his own mother. And Leviticus 18, 6 through 10 gives us context for this. It says, none of you shall approach any one of his close relatives to uncover nakedness. I am the Lord. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, which is the nakedness of your mother. She is your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. You see, that's giving the context right there to Genesis 9. But we live in a world that is thousands of years separated from that, and it's hard to understand sometimes in modern English. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife, who is your father's nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your sister, your father's daughter, or your mother's daughter, whether brought up in the family or in another home. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your son's daughter or of your daughter's daughter, for their nakedness is your own nakedness. So here it is. Thankfully, we have another verse to give it context there, but war language is the same way. There is something that's called haram in the ancient Hebrew, and haram is a total military victory, which is what it says in some of these cases: men, women, and children who were killed. Um, but that's not what it meant. They're not going and slaughtering innocents. There absolutely were instances where women were killed, but they weren't innocent women. These were, first of all, military bases where they were attacking, and the women involved were often involved in the things like temple prostitution because they were the high priests are involved in those rituals. And once again, that is what God was focused on. God was focused on stopping these awful things from happening. Let me go to, let's see, Jeremiah 28, I believe. Of course I didn't. Uh, uh, I don't know if I can actually find it there. Okay, let me try to look that up because it's important to find that. Okay, this is important. Jeremiah 19:5. Um, okay, this is important because it's important for what we were talking about earlier. Um, so we'll start with verse 4. Because the people have forsaken me, this is God talking, because the people have forsaken me and have profaned this place by making offerings in it, the temple he's talking about, offerings in it to other gods whom neither they nor their fathers nor the kings of Judah have known, because they have filled this place with the blood of innocents and built the high places of Baal. Baal is another god, to burn their sons in the fires as burnt offerings to Baal, which I did not command or decree, nor did it ever come into my mind. Therefore, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when this place shall be no more called Topeth, the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. And in this place I will make void the plans of Judah and Jerusalem, and I will cause their people to fall by the sword before their enemies, and by the hands of those who seek their life. I will give their dead bodies for food to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth. This, the reason for God saying, I'm going to let the Babylonians come and just take you. This is the vilest thing you have done, the very thing that I have been leading the Israelites to stopping in the world, killing the innocent children at the altars of Baal and Moloch, something I did not command or decree, nor did it ever come to my mind. This is exactly what everything in the Old Testament was about, was stopping things like this. It was the worst kind of depraved act. And by the way, when Christianity took hold, that is exactly where it took up where the ancient Israelites had left off, in ending infanticide and horrible acts like this. Um, and see, this is, Ken, this is exactly what I talk about, where I'm like, you are not seeming to understand the context. You're like, oh, if it's if God's commanding to you to do something, you're reading these verses, not trying to understand context, just reading them plain English, no breaking down textual criticism or anything like that, and you are parroting a lot of what the standard atheist parrot online over and over again. Um, you keep on saying these things, and that is not what God is doing in the Old Testament. It's not. Yes, He allows horrible things to happen. He does. He allows awful things to happen, because once again, He is redeeming the world through our rebellion. He is bringing about all the good through our rebellion, but He is stopping the most vile thing. And the most vile thing was the presence of these dark forces in the world. And the presence of the dark forces were obviously the giants. He was at war with them, but it was the vilest things, these child sacrifices, that He had this vendetta against. And He continues to have a vendetta against, by the way. He continues to command us to be against these things, because these are the most vile things. Child sacrifice is the absolute epitome of depravity. And it continues to happen under a different guise, under a different name, under this illusion of women's rights, and oh, this is just the modern world. It's the way it should be. Um, Yeah, that's exactly right. Emily, you were saying to Ken, even if something is considered punishment in the Bible, that doesn't mean it becomes morally okay for us to do. God's justice is perfect. As humans, we can't always understand the reason behind His actions in the Old Testament. Innocent life, like babies, is precious to God. That is absolutely right. And he was not commanding, by the way. He was not commanding, especially in that First Samuel 15:3, I believe. Um, that's not him commanding to go and slaughter innocent men, women, and children. It's not. It says that in the English, but it is known that that's not what happened there. That is not what happened there. And in no case did that happen except for, I think there was one time, and I don't remember, and that was a military base as well. So it was a different story. But when he's using the language of going and slaughtering all the men, women, and children, not even leaving the cattle and stuff alive, it is called a total military victory. It is a victory over their gods. It is putting an end to these horrible practices. And yes, there's awful things that still happen, by the way. And yes, they kept the people as slaves when they didn't slaughter them. They kept them as slaves, all the people who survived. And that's because it was a society where they were doing this sacrifice and awful, depraved things on the regular. They were doing this temple prostitution where it was also involving child sacrifice on the regular. So, yeah, I've got I just saw how late it was, but um, it's important uh, that we understand how to read the scriptures. And if you can't bring yourself to even think, well, yeah, God is definitely real, and let's give him, let's have at least a charitable view on what he's trying to do. Let's not automatically jump to what the new age atheists say, and they are quite literally always saying something completely different than 99% of the Christians throughout the history of Christianity are saying. Um, but and the scholars too, the way Christians read the scriptures, it doesn't matter to the new age atheist movement, because they just want to use it as a bludgeon against the faith. And you can say, no, that's not you're you're speaking for all of us. I'm not. I'm saying that is the same verse that almost all the other atheists quote, the First Samuel 15:3, and it is for the same reason, with without the context that matters within it, without trying to understand what is God doing in the Old Testament, what is happening here. It's automatically giving the least charitable view. It's saying, no, he's this monster and he's going around ordering these innocents to be killed. It is like when I said in the beginning, Betty the botanist, as Glenn Scribner says, she gets this specimen of this biological specimen in the mail, and she's breaking it down and studying it in her lab, and she's like, "Oh, this is a beautiful specimen." And then Johnny calls her on the phone. He's like, "Did you get the long stem rose that I sent to you, Betty?" She's like, "Oh, yes, I'm breaking it down in my lab right now." And he's like, "Don't you understand? I sent that to you because I love you, as a gesture of my love. I didn't send it to you to break it down in your lab and to, uh, be part of some science experiment, because science, while it is important for some things in our life, it means nothing compared to the love in our life. It means nothing compared to the relationship in our life. And it means nothing to what God, compared to what God is showing us in our lives, what he has in store for us. So it's all about context. learning to read the scriptures in context, learning to not give automatically the least charitable view to everything in the scriptures, because that is absolutely what I see. I mean, I understand that I'm getting always the probably most outspoken atheists, um, but every atheist I encounter, they bring up how awful God is. God's allowing scrape, and God's telling to go do genocide. God's allowing slavery. And never once trying to figure out what is happening here. Is what I'm quoting? Is it exactly what's going on? What's the context for this? Why is this happening? What is the global context that is happening at the time of these events? And what was the outcome of it? What happened when Jesus Christ came? Was there a turning point in all of this? And did it seem like the same types of things were happening and being ordered under Jesus Christ as they were under the Israelites? If we just keep looking with the least favorable, the least uncharitable, that is not genuinely seeking. It's not. That is just um, using the bludgeon that other atheists who have an agenda have have been using for decades now. But I mean, if that's the way you want to approach scripture, then you're never going to truly get meaning and purpose from it. You're never going to understand God through it, because it's just going to look like foolishness to you. It really will. Um, without meditating deeply on everything within the scriptures, it will be foolishness. Hey, Michael Knight, a wicked person does not seek to truly understand or gain wisdom, but only to find fault in with the statement of truth before it is ever spoken. Book of Proverbs. That's right, Michael. Um, and I would. I'm not calling the atheists on here wicked or anything, but they are repeating things that from other atheists are wicked. They are being used as a bludgeon against Christianity, always. And it's always, by the way, jumping back. Every now and then they'll try to take something Jesus said or something in the Gospels out of context, but it's always jumping back to the Old Testament to see something happened in a world where God did not have an intimate relationship with the Israelites. He was guiding them towards salvation through Christ, but that was still a long way off. So it was a much different time, and those things happened for a reason. So we could see what a world without God looks like, a godless world where people create their own gods and people go after their own ideas of what God should be. That's what the Old Testament world looked like. And it's a world that is foreign to us because our world has been drastically changed in every aspect, by the way, by Christianity. Most of the time, we take it for granted. We don't even understand how radically changed it's been. Um, Ken, uh, wow, so angry. Says, name is just a bunch of letters. Okay, show me. Defend biblical slavery. Do it now. JKD, coward won't even try. Just moan and whine. Sounds like there's only one person moaning and whining here. Um, defending slavery. Why don't you, as an unbeliever, give a reason why we shouldn't have slavery. It is a better case study because my God came and is the reason slavery was ended. If you think that God he he loves slavery so much, that's why he gave this gift to his people. He gave this gift to his people called slavery, and he allowed them to be enslaved. He's like, look, you're going to see how great slavery is, and you're going to be enslaved by the Egyptians, by the Philistines, by the Moabites, by the Assyrians, and of course by the Babylonians. Have but it's such a gift. It's such a gift right there, right? Again, not understanding the context, not even trying to understand what God is doing. He is allowing us to see a world without him, a world separated from him, because this was not what he brought forth. He's not some puppet master pulling the strings. This is a world that was broken more than enough without him, and he comes to save us from it. And by the way, slavery comes from the Nephilim. It does. That was the origin of it. It comes from the Nephilim because the evil deeds were taught to us by the evil gods who were the fallen angels. Um, all right, guys, I got to get off here because I got church in the morning early. So you are vile. Again, tell me why slavery is wrong. Name that's obviously a troll name. Just tell me why it's wrong. My God came and put an end to it. You can't even give me one justification why it's wrong. Coward liar. Didn't lie about anything. Okay, guys, I'm getting off of here. Uh, hey, Eric. Eric, it was great to have you on here, my brother. But yeah, so I will get into this again another time, but I will be back tomorrow night. Starting usually about it's probably a little bit closer to 10:30 because my kids are off for spring break, so they might be staying up a little bit later, maybe even pushing to 11 p.m. Eastern time. But I should see you guys back tomorrow. Hope you can make it. God bless you. Hope you have a great Sunday. Talk to you soon.